Hey everyone, this is Charlie Shrem, and you're listening to Untold Stories. This is a show where we dive deep into the lives and personal histories of some of crypto's most influential leaders and find out how the crypto movement truly came to be. Let's dive in. Very, very rarely in any industry do we have an opportunity to get the inside information about how decisions are made and how policy is formed from one of the largest companies and most well-known in our space. And not only that, but the CEO of that company is one of the most important crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever you want to say, one of the most important OGs in our space. Allow me to and excitedly present a live episode today with the CEO of Kraken and a good friend of mine, Jesse Powell. I traveled to San Francisco a few weeks ago and did this episode live on stage in front of thousands of people. The first ever live Untold Stories from SF Blockchain Week. And it was an amazing, amazing talk, but we were cut off after 30 minutes and people booed. So immediately after the show, Jesse and I ran to a studio. We got into the studio and we continued recording this episode. Enjoy. I'm so honored that Untold Stories is sponsored by eToro. eToro is the smartest crypto trading platform and one of the largest in the world with over $1 trillion in trading volume per year. What I really love about eToro is that the CEO has been around the Bitcoin space since 2012, so they really put their money where their mouths are. US customers, myself included, we can trade the most popular crypto assets, in fact, almost all of the ones that you want to trade, with low but transparent fees. So you actually know what you're paying for everything. And that's really important. So if you're not ready to trade yet, you can practice building your portfolio with the eToro $100,000 virtual trading feature. So you can create this whole portfolio without trading with any real money to see how you'll do. And you can learn all the different ins and outs without using any real money yet. And then once you're comfortable, you can enter the market and start buying and selling crypto for real. Best of all, one of my favorite features is that you can connect with 11 million other eToro traders in the world, myself included. And we can talk trading, charts, and all things crypto. So listen, head on over to eToro.com, links are in the show notes, and build your crypto portfolio the smart way. I want to thank and give credit to the first ever sponsor of Untold Stories, Scott Offer. Scott is a Bitcoin mining consultant, and I really want you guys to check out one of his coolest apps that's free to use. It's a Bitcoin mining profitability calculator that you can check it out before you get involved in mining, or if you just want to learn more about whether mining is profitable and how it works. The website is cryptomining.tools. That's cryptomining.tools. You can enter your estimated uptime and get more realistic profit projections. It includes really cool features like the impact of the Bitcoin block reward halving, which is actually coming up extremely soon. Their API allows you to embed profitability calculators and other live data directly into your own website, all for free. Also, if you're wondering which miner is the most efficient or has the best chance of breaking even, you should try out their interactive hardware comparison chart. So it's a hardware comparison chart, so you can compare all different types of miners for all different coins and tokens, and it's interactive, so you can play around with it. It's by far the best tool if you have any questions about mining or if you want to learn more about mining. It's the best tool. You can check it out. As a mining consultant, Scott helps you make data-backed business decisions. He will be involved in the process if you want to buy a miner, if you want to sell a miner, if you have miners that need to get into data centers. I mean, if you follow Scott on Twitter, even if you're not in the mining industry, you learn so much. I follow him. It's super cool. You can check it out on Twitter or Telegram at Offered Scott. That's OFFORDSCOTT. That's OFFORDSCOTT. Again, I want to give a special thanks to Scott. You were my first sponsor when the show was just launching. Thank you so much. Untold Stories wouldn't be here without the amazing production company Blockworks Group. A few months ago, I approached Blockworks Group and I said, hey guys, I want to do a show, Untold Stories. Can we make it happen? And these guys are the only event and podcast production company that I trust. Really, this show is powered by them, and it wouldn't be here today without the amazing work of the Blockworks Group team. So for access to all the premier digital asset conferences and to check out their other podcasts in their network that they produce, check them out at blockworksgroup.io. That's blockworksgroup.io. I promise you will not be disappointed. Hey guys, I'm Charlie Shrem, and you're listening to Untold Stories. This is a show where I dive deep into the lives and personal histories of some of crypto's most influential leaders and find out how this crypto movement really came to be. I'm super excited that today, to be doing my first live recording, to have you here with me, Jesse Powell, the founder and CEO of Kraken. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
This is
an honor.
This was such an awesome idea, and when they threw out like a bunch of names, I immediately said you, and I said, we have to do this. And when we did our pre-call the other day, I feel like we got a lot of the good content out there, and so I wanna jump right into it. I think the most important question that people have on their minds when they first start using Kraken is, why did you name the company after a legendary Norwegian sea monster?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. I always say that I had the domain, and so it was easy.
You told me that years ago when you first launched the company.
I was a domain hoarder back in the day. I guess I still am. Got a ton of crypto domains, but Kraken was a domain that I bought back in like 2003 or something like that. And I thought one day I'm going to do something really cool with this domain. And when the idea to launch an exchange came up, I just thought like, okay, now's the time to do this. The name has,
it works. It works.
Yeah,
really well.
I mean, it's got all the hallmarks of a great brand. It's short, it's memorable, it's fun to say.
A liquor company should make the brand. They should use it.
What's that?
A liquor company should use it.
Yeah, it'd be a great name for a liquor company. I wonder why no one's done that yet.
And have they ever called you to get the domain back?
No, people have tried to buy the domain often. I don't know if it was ever them, but we also get support tickets for them too. People. What
kind of support tickets does like what is it, rum?
Yeah.
What type of support tickets does a rum company get on Zendesk?
Yeah, I don't know. I bought your product, and I didn't get as drunk as I thought I was going to get. So.
So tell me about more about the founding of the company and why you decided to do it. We think that the exchange market is saturated now, but it was still saturated back then. We had this amazing exchange called Mt. Gox that was super good, and everyone loves it. They're still running nowadays. No one got scammed by them. But
are we doing this interview in 2012?
Yeah. You have a great story that I know you love to tell about kind of the early days of Mt. Gox. It was during one of the first hacks that Mt. Gox went through. They went through multiple, and I think it was 2011. And so the site was down, and you called up Mark Karpeles, the CEO, and you were in Japan, and you offered to help. How's the rest of the story?
Yeah, actually, I got a call from Roger Beer, who was in Japan, who just happened to live a few blocks away from their office. And we were both already into Bitcoin, heavily in early 2011. And when Gox went down, we were both trading on Gox. Roger went over there to the office to find out what was going on and discovered that there were 2 guys in the entire company, and one guy had just started the day before.
Yeah.
So it was just Mark plus this brand new guy. And, Roger was like, okay, we got to do something here. They were just getting massive support tickets. There were 60,000 users. The whole thing was, basically that was 99% of the exchange volume at the time. So, while they were offline, merchants couldn't accept payments. Nobody knew what the price was. It was a total disaster for the industry. So Roger calls me and he's like, hey, you want to come out to Japan and help fix this? So I was on the next plane and spent, a week and a half out there helping them with all kinds of stuff.
And you probably learned from that experience, saying one day I'm going to have a company, an exchange, and it's not going to be like this. And kind of you've done that. Kraken has become the name. You've never had loss of funds. You've never been hacked. Everyone loves the product, loves the brand. So that really is such a parallel from when you're, I can imagine you under Mark's chair, unplugging wires, plugging them back in, or trying to fix the code base, figure out what's wrong with the issue. Now you're the CEO and you founded this huge company. You have some unconventional thoughts on different things. For example, how a coin or a token gets named. What do you think should determine that?
Yeah, this is always coming up anytime there's a contentious fork as to who should get the name, like with Bitcoin especially.
This was a big issue less than 2 years ago. It almost exploded the whole industry.
Yeah, it was an issue with Bitcoin Cash, and it was an issue again with BSV. And actually, a bunch of exchanges got sued by some people representing BSV for basically not assigning the Bitcoin name to BSV.
What determines that? How do you guys decide? And I want to ask you more about that in a second, but take us like inside. If there was an animation, we'd see like the office of Kraken and the doors would open up and the camera would swoop inside. Give us like the untold stories and take us inside of how some of these decisions happen, how things get made. You have the future of the industry almost on your shoulders, not to put any pressure on you, but that's kind of what happens. So your decisions don't just affect your customers and you and I, but it affects millions of people around the world. How do you guys make those decisions?
Yeah, this was a tough decision with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, and also for Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. And fortunately, we've got a bunch of philosophers on the team who love to debate these kinds of things. And
also people within the company themselves are ideological.
Within the company, I have multiple philosophy PhDs who just love to debate this kind of stuff all day long. So we had great thinking around it. I think there's a very strong argument for Ethereum Classic, being still called Ethereum, right, as the sort of the original chain that went on, and what is now we refer to as Ethereum as being sort of a forked coin. Basically, we decided that we should look at something not even the longest chain, not even what is the original kind of vision, but more like the most kind of accumulated awareness, like social awareness. Like, what do most people associate with this particular coin? And one of the analogies we looked to was there's actually a old Star Trek: The Next Generation episode.
That's what we do. Yeah, of course.
Yep, the Star Trek has all the answers.
Or Seinfeld.
Seinfeld as well. Yeah. And we looked at, so there was an episode with I don't know if you guys are Star Trek fans, but where
at a crypto conference,
Will Riker basically gets forked. He gets trapped in. There's a copy of him trapped in a transporter, and this copy eventually is supposed to be destroyed. So in Star Trek, transporting isn't actually transporting you. It's creating a copy and destroying the old one, basically.
Oh, okay, wow.
But basically, this copy got trapped in the transporter, and then it emerged 10 years later. And
was the original there too?
The original is still there, right? So who had basically 10 more years of life than the guy who was trapped in the transporter. So we kind of looked at this as a good analogy for this kind of thing. And most people had the guy who had the most time in, who basically had the most social awareness, was still treated as the Will Riker, the original.
Interesting.
The guy who came out of the transporter 10 years later, everyone referred to him as Thomas Riker. I think Thomas was the middle name. And it was basically Will Riker got to keep the name because he basically had the most social awareness.
Yeah, there was a movie like that did something similar where one guy went on a plane and the plane was 10 years later, so there's two of them. It was the one who stayed who was not the original. The original was the one who came back, who was considered so now you have Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, BSV, Bitcoin Private, Bitcoin Candy. You have all these different ones. I guess, so it's what you're saying is it's not really something that you can almost quantify. It has to be more of gut feeling, but then you have different companies or different people that make these different decisions. But that's consensus then. That's where enough companies, enough people, enough miners, enough developers, when everyone kind of agrees and there's somewhat of a consensus on one thing, then that's how we move forward. But it could be contentious. It could be fighting. And we saw that a few years ago. And I honestly, if you were to tell me that the solution would have resolved itself, we'd have where we are today, I would say no way. I thought it would be a lot worse than it actually ended up being. So it's really good. We talked a little bit about listing coins. Everyone here knows that during that crazy ICO bubble, a lot of projects wanted to get listed on exchanges, a lot of coins. It's still a big thing. Coins listing on exchanges. If it's on Binance, it's amazing. If it's on this other exchange, it's not. That's a whole thing. You guys were very selective and careful about which projects you listed. unlike some other exchanges that we're listing every single day. What goes on internally in the token listing process? I think that's one of the most, that's a question that it's the most vague in the crypto world today.
Yeah, so there's a committee of people that are stakeholders in various parts of the business, from legal, compliance, engineering, product, support, who all kind of come together to review tokens and to decide, what should be the priority and whether to list something. And there are considerations like, is it a security? Which geographies can we legally trade this in? Do we think it's a scam? Do we think it has any longevity? Is it technically going to be like high maintenance? We're going to have to dedicate like 3 full-time guys because it's like an alpha project that's constantly changing.
Are these all metrics that you can write down, or is this?
Yeah, there's pretty much like a scoring system and a report that's developed for each coin. And, so it's sort of basically if it gets cleared, then it'll go into the queue to be released.
You have to deal with regulatory, basically these jurisdictions have to approve a coin or a token.
Right.
There's a lot of manpower, it seems like, that goes involved in that process. So you either have to be like one or the other. You guys are still launching and putting out a lot of good features. You have Kraken Pro Mobile that you just launched. You're still adding a lot of coins and tokens. But we were talking earlier about staking, and I kind of thought of this question on the fly, as I do most of the time. And I think you would agree with me. Let's go back like to the years of 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, even 2015, 2016. We got so many exchanges exit scammed, so many exchanges got hacked. And what would we say? Never leave your money on exchanges. Like, it was just a thing. It was like in our brains. In fact, it happened so much that we were almost desensitized to it. Another exchange, how much? Only 5 million? No problem. Not the end of the world. That happened last week. Easy. Not that that's a good thing. But now, you were talking about launching staking. A lot of companies are launching, interest rates, crypto loans. It seems like it's custodial. So it seems like the message of never keep your money on exchanges was what it was, but now it's like exchanges are saying, keep your money with us. Is that okay? Have we reached a point where security is good enough? I'm not talking about just about you. I'm talking about your whole, all your colleagues and all your competitors and sister companies or whatever in the space. Do you think even the ones that you like are good enough that you would be comfortable leaving money there? Are we ready for that message of, hey, leave your money here. We'll offer staking. We'll offer lending. We'll offer interest rates and crazy numbers, like 10, 12% I'm seeing. Are we ready for that yet?
Well, I think exchange security has come a long way. We've got 8 years of experience developing this. We've got a security team of 30 plus people. So, I think we're maybe a little bit farther ahead than, most others are in the space. But I would still say, post your money with any exchange, with
there's risk.
Caution. Yeah, there's risk there. And it may not be, the counterparty risk there may not be worth what the return is. For our clients, while you have money staked, you can still use it as collateral. Basically, there's a capital efficiency kind of thing. Like, if you're going to have money there anyway for trading, you don't want to be
make your money work for you.
Yeah, you may want to just have it earn something for you. Of course, people can still interact with the blockchain themselves and stake their own coins. It's still fairly complicated to do it. Most people aren't going to do that. But if you think you got $100 just sitting there, you feel like the counterparty risk is pretty low.
That's the thing now. It used to be, you have $100, send it back to your ledger or Trezor. Now it's, you have $100, keep it here, and you can earn a percentage on that. And that's okay. Like, I'm a big fan of having your money work for you. I want to do it. But I just get nervous of how vigilant we used to be versus how vigilant we are now. But I still think that self-regulation is the best way forward. You're a big proponent of that. I know that, I remember, and we never talked about this, I remember like years ago, you were really pushing hard, and you had staff for putting together a self-regulatory organization. It was an SRO. And I remember, and this was like, I never even heard of that. I was like, what is this concept of a self-regulatory authority? So you were really forward on that, I remember. But I guess maybe it didn't hit off at the time because people were just like, let us be left alone. But you were right, we should have. How did things move forward with that? Are you pleased with the self-regulation that we have in the space today?
Well, what we learned in the process of trying to do that is that it's not going to be successful unless you really have government backing, if the organization has some teeth to it, because people can just opt out and benefit from not complying. Basically,
Yeah, it's like the UN human rights, thing. Venezuela can be in there if they want. Like anyone can be in there.
Right. Yeah. So it's worked out very differently in Japan. It actually is a very tight connection with the government, and the government relies on the SRO heavily to advise and to make policy and to enforce. It can work well, I think, in the right circumstances. But here we just didn't have the buy-in from the government.
It's really interesting how different government, and I know this is talked about so much, but how different jurisdictional shopping is and how that's gotten such a big thing now. You have companies like, you read this company's moving from this jurisdiction to this jurisdiction. I'm like, but what does that mean they're moving? They're all still based in the same office in San Francisco somewhere or wherever they are. So I mean, do you see like a common denominator in certain countries versus other countries, like other things that you can kind of tell? I know that in a lot of Asian countries, in Japan, you talk about they're a lot more forward and willing to work with you. China, not so much, but this whole bull run that we've been having, everyone is saying thank you, China. But then you have a lot of Western countries that are just very negative towards crypto and not willing to open up their ears. And on this show, on Untold Stories, we've talked to politicians. I've had a minister who's a vice president of his party in India. And he's like, I love Bitcoin. I love crypto. But the problem is there are just some people, one or two guys that run the central bank, and they're just like, no, I hate it.
Well, you see stuff, in the United States, just these Libra hearings, and just show that the guys in power really don't understand technology. They don't understand crypto. Yes, so it's been very tough in the United States. I think that the machine is just so big, the bureaucracy is so big, and the incentives are not really aligned. In other smaller countries, even within the United States, in certain states like Wyoming, Wyoming has really taken the approach of Bitcoin and blockchain being like a business opportunity and an economic development opportunity for the state. And they've passed 13 bills, which are super pro crypto, super pro Bitcoin, pro developer, makes things very clear, provides excellent consumer protection, way better consumer protection than you get from an entity in New York.
There's still that federal overhang, though. That's the thing.
This is still the problem in the U.S., right? There's not really any way to opt out of this U.S. protection at the federal level other than moving yourself to another country.
I think this is something that'll work itself out. The market is efficient when we allow it to be, and so I think this will resolve itself. How, where the U.S. fits in down the road, I hope there's a bigger presence, but however things, fall. When we come down here, there was a sign that said, "Happy birthday, Bitcoin, 11 years." You saw it. It's been 11 years since Satoshi came out with the white paper, October 31st, Halloween. I can't believe it's been, I thought it was only 10, but it's been this long time. If you look at like a scale of the years and you look at, fervent ideology, and I'm not talking about like fundamentalism, I mean just more like love and ideology for the space. It's definitely gone down. Although like being here today, having been at the conference in Vegas a few days ago and having run the show, I'm learning that people still are there for the love and they are there for the ideology. They just may not be the most vocal. But I was talking to someone about this, we were debating, and he said how he thinks, and he was at the first, I think it's Computer World, that conference, and actually the first Computer World conference that took place in 1994, 1984, took place in the same room as the first Bitcoin conference in San Jose in 2013. So that was pretty crazy. I found that out. But he was saying how ideology in the computer and internet world was huge in the early days, and then when internet and computers became a thing, that tapered off. And there's not people you meet that are like, oh my God, I love the internet. It's just a thing. We love the internet. Do you think that crypto needs that ideology anymore? Do you think it's good to be a little bit fringe, or do you think you kind of wake up during the day and say, oh, I miss those days when it was a little bit more about the love and ending the Fed and stuff like that?
think we still need that because we're not out of the woods yet. There's still a lot of governments around the world who haven't made up their mind about crypto, or who are kind of waking up to crypto. And you see like the stuff with Libra is kind of being, I think, like a wake-up call to some people in government that, this could kind of get really big. And so I think we still need to hold to these ideals, right? We don't want to just create another PayPal 2.0 where everything is fully controlled by
There's some people that are okay with that, like creating another Venmo or a PayPal 2.0, but that's not what we're here for.
That's definitely not what I'm here for. I don't think it's what you're here for. I think most people at Kraken are still believers in the mission, which is to bring crypto to the world, fully decentralized, no permission to participate in the financial network.
What type of questions do you ask on a job interview when you want to bring someone onto the team? I'm just curious. I
Yeah.
don't even have this question prepared.
We actually have an ideological purity test.
Okay. Wow, I want to hear, this is an untold story. Let's hear this.
So we
Ideological
ask
purity
people
test.
all sorts of questions, like, what do you think about Bitcoin? What do you think about the government? What do you think about the Fed? How would you, if you were going to attack Bitcoin, how would you do it? Imagine you're a government, how would you do it?
What type of answers do you get?
We get different answers. I mean, it's a really good question to test someone's understanding of Bitcoin and kind of like, what the levers are.
So it doesn't really matter like what their answer is. It's more of like if they could answer and intelligently.
Yeah. So, some people might say, well, if I was the government, I would ban every business from taking it, or, I would put up a firewall around the country like China and block all the IPs, for nodes and stuff.
I've heard a lot of ways that you could attack Bitcoin and shut down Bitcoin. And I always would be able to hear what the person was saying and then in my head come up with a reason that wouldn't work. And then the other night, someone said to me a way that he would attack Bitcoin. And I'm like, oh shit, that's actually really good.
Well, don't say it.
I don't remember what it was though. I don't remember. I was trying to remember.
Good.
I was in Vegas.
That's the right answer.
There's definitely that, and I love how that's still there. You do get a few people who are a little bit burned out, and that's okay. I think the industry is moving forward. So we're like, let's just pretend it's 10 years because 11 for the math. Where do you see us in 10 years from now? Are we still doing conferences? You think, is it more of like, we're a thing now, what are we conferencing about? It'll be more conferences that may be focused on healthcare tracks or supply chain management or exchanges or industry, but it won't be like, crypto's amazing, let's just have a big meetup and everyone will talk about it type of thing. Do you think we'll be still doing these?
I think there'll still be like a core group of people who are still there. I don't think Bitcoin or crypto will have taken over the world in 10 years.
That's a good thing though. That means we have time to buy more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get in early.
Guys.
Still.
Kraken.
But I think, eventually it's just going to become like a, TCP/IP or something, right? There's not like a conference for like, I guess
there should be a conference for TCP/IP.
You could bring it back. Do it next year.
I don't know anything about it. I know that's, it operates the infrastructure of the internet, but, and it's the protocol. And it's a very good analogy because it's, the protocol that, where Bitcoin's going to be, I think, is that we're going to have this protocol that fundamentally changes how we do different things. So I guess the best answer that I've heard is we'll just be using it, but no one will really know or care that we're using it. And so that's where we'll be in 10 years. And I don't know if I like that answer because I like going to these events. They're fun.
Yeah, I love these events. I still think it's not going to be totally buried by then. And, I think some countries, they're only going to be able to use raw Bitcoin. They're not going to have like these second layer services because they may just be made explicitly illegal.
All services.
Yeah.
As these services get bigger and more registered and better regulated and in more jurisdictions, I think that option of being able to shut all those down in one country won't be a thing for two reasons. There'll be much more, but also everyone will be using Bitcoin. And for this purpose of this conversation, I'm using Bitcoin and crypto, together because there are a lot of coins that could be heavily used later, privacy coins, whatever they are. But this was another good, the last tidbit that someone told me the other day was that in his view, and he's very new to the scene, he's like, in my view, what I love about Bitcoin is that I know that if I own some today, in 30 years from now, it'll be the same. The fact that Bitcoin won't change is one of its best assets. And I'm saying to myself, I actually kind of agree with that. But at the same time, if we don't innovate and grow, will we lose out? And so that's definitely something that needs to be watched out over the next few years.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think Bitcoin necessarily needs to be all things to all people. I think it can choose a use case and just be the best at that particular use case. I think the more it can do, the better. It'd be great if it were both the best store of value and the best payment system.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's obviously a lot of competition to do these things, and it could be that the landscape changes completely 10 years from now.
So pretend you're interviewing me right now, like ask me a Bitcoin ideological question. I want to see how I would answer. Give me the hardest one you guys got.
Oh man, it's been a while since I've been administering these tests. But
you should just jump into job interviews for people and see what happens.
Yeah, it's stealth. Okay, so
hold on, I got to get my pen.
All right, you can either hold dollars or hold Bitcoin. Which do you
only?
Yeah.
Forever?
Forever, yeah.
I'm so honored that Untold Stories is sponsored by eToro. eToro is the smartest crypto trading platform and one of the largest in the world with over $1 trillion in trading volume per year. What I really love about eToro is that the CEO has been around the Bitcoin space since 2012, so they really put their money where their mouths are. US customers, myself included, we can trade the most popular crypto assets, in fact, almost all of the ones that you want to trade, with low but transparent fees. So you actually know what you're paying for everything. And that's really important. So if you're not ready to trade yet, you can practice building your portfolio with the eToro $100,000 virtual trading feature. So you can create this whole portfolio without trading with any real money to see how you'll do. And you could learn all the different ins and outs without using any real money yet. And then once you're comfortable, you could enter the market and start buying and selling crypto for real. Best of all, one of my favorite features is that you can connect with 11 million other eToro traders in the world, myself included. And we can talk trading, charts, and all things crypto. So listen, head on over to eToro.com. Links are in the show notes, and build your crypto portfolio the smart way. I'd like to thank my sponsor of Untold Stories, Scott Offord. Scott is a Bitcoin mining consultant and provides managed miner hosting services in Texas. If you need to get at least 25 megawatts of miners online in the next 3 months, Scott wants to talk with you right now. Contact him on Telegram or Twitter at OFFORD SCOTT. He's offering an all-in rate of 6.5 cents per kilowatt an hour. Wow, that's like super cheap. That's like electricity cost in the Arctic, where things are automatically cooled because it's so cold. So he's offering 6.5 cents per kilowatt an hour without any capex required. Or if you commit to $170,000 per megawatt up front, he can get you a rate of 5 cents per kilowatt. Am I reading that right? 5 cents per kilowatt? That's unbelievable. Scott can get your first 25 megawatt hashing within 16 weeks from the date of signing. All the infrastructure, power lines, substations, water lines, and buildings are fully owned by the hosting company. By the end of March 2020, they will already have 150 megawatts online in Texas. This is such a super cool ad to record because my listeners are learning about mining now. Like this is really interesting. I didn't even know half this stuff before I met Scott and he started sponsoring the show. So make sure you check out Scott on Telegram and Twitter at OFFORD SCOTT. And Scott, thank you again for being my first ever Untold Story sponsor. I hope you guys enjoyed that live take with Jesse Powell from San Francisco that I did a few weeks ago. Immediately following that interview, we jumped into the studio. In the live interview, we talked about things like how actually tokens are listed, exchange security, capital efficiency, self-regulation, and government support for crypto in places like Japan. Going forward in the next talk, we're going to talk about how Jesse believes that more blockchain companies will move to countries with better pro-crypto legislation, adding that Kraken is, and you ready for this, set to acquire more companies in this space to stay ahead of the competition. So enjoy this talk with Jesse Powell, CEO of Kraken, and enjoy the stories. Jesse, in 2013, I don't know if you remember this. We were talking, and you put together this idea, and you called it DATA, and this was the Digital Asset Transfer Authority. Your idea was basically to put together kind of like a self-regulatory body, basically all the and this is 2013. I mean, there were like 7 companies in the space total. Your idea was to basically start, as an industry, working together, and you foresaw regulation. You foresaw that this was going to happen. You foresaw bit license, and over time, there were other ventures that you went on to found in the self-regulatory kind of sphere, and you've been very on top of talking to regulators, talking to governments. We spoke about this briefly a few weeks ago. You're very critical of certain type of regulations. You're very critical of the bit license in New York, but you're not critical about regulation when it seems like to me, just from your readings and from your writings, it seems like it's not regulation that, itself that you have a problem with. It's burdensome and basically regulations that don't make any sense, cause disruption, and don't allow for innovation. Do you think that down the road we could be governed by some sort of self-regulatory body, or we're just not there yet?
I do think that it's possible at some point. I think that, without some teeth to it, without the ability to enforce, it becomes meaningless, which is kind of what we saw with the first attempt there with data, which was that, a group of companies got together to basically follow some rules, which we thought would alleviate a lot of the government's concerns and allow them to take a more careful approach to things and to be more considerate of their approach,
and
to
this was
not make
very
any
forward-thinking
hasty moves.
During this year, I mean, I was the compliance officer doing KYC in my basement. This wasn't the day of compliance officers. This wasn't, this wasn't, this. Basically, we were under the radar at this point. The FinCEN, the FinCEN clarity that first came out, I don't think that happened until maybe March. So this was very, very, very early on. What was some of the reception that you got from that? Yeah. What type of rules, like you were saying, there were rules that maybe all the companies that would follow, and who were some of the companies at the time? I know we talked, you approached us at BitInstant, but what type of other companies and people were you talking to back then that were interested in doing this?
It was largely other exchanges and wallets.
It was just like Mt. Gox.
Don't even remember everyone who was involved back then. Probably a bunch of companies that, Gox, a bunch of companies that aren't around anymore, probably. I'm sure Bitstamp was in there, probably Coinbase, probably, the major players that were around back then. And, I think those guys who I mentioned, I think saw the value in it, but, there's always this issue of like the people who don't participate having an advantage, right? So if you all agree, if members of the group all agree, we're not going to allow 10,000x margin trading. Like, we just think that's like too risky. A bunch of people are going to get blown up, and then the regulator's going to, come after us. If we agree on that, but there's someone else out there who offers that, and that's actually like, what consumers want, then they will have an advantage. So, you get to this like point where it's not everyone's like on the same playing field, and you start to guess about like what consumers actually care about, and it gets very difficult to manage. And I think we had more success in Japan, where we actually had the support of the government, and the government is working very closely with the self-regulatory organization there, and they actually look to the self-regulatory organization to do a lot of research for them, to make proposals for things which will become like official law.
So it's on a level
to
playing
help them
field.
evaluate
Like, do you
the
feel
other
like
players in the space,
in
to
Japan,
evaluate tokens.
when you're talking to regulators, do you feel like you're speaking to someone who potentially could be your colleague or someone that you work with? Not instead of the, I feel like more here, it's the regulators you're almost looking up at. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, in Japan, it's a much more a relationship of peers. I mean, the regulator sees the self-regulatory organization as sort of an expert, and it's made up of other crypto companies, right? Like a bunch of crypto companies and leaders from those companies who really understand the space very well, and know what the actual risks are versus like the imagined risks. And so the regulator relies heavily on the input of the SRO there. And the SRO has a lot of influence in what happens.
And you were one of the
regulator,
founders
like
of
what the official laws
the
that are
Japan
made,
Authority
or,
of Digital Assets. Is
even,
that the self-regulatory body, that works with the government?
right?
So what I don't understand is, while you were arguably the first, there were and still are many groups of people that are trying to, do this self-regulatory. There are a lot of good, I don't know if you saw last week, I forget what it's called, but a bunch of wallets, I think like 15 wallets came out and said, we want to have some sort of, this is not self-regulatory, but more, interoperability between all the different wallets. So it's been tried, but why, besides for the teeth argument, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, I just don't understand why it won't work. How come FINRA worked, but why can't we do that for crypto? Now it does, but when it started, it didn't. It was just like a self-regulatory body.
Authority. Yeah. I don't actually know what the history was there, like how they came to have that power. What we see with a lot of these regulations is that it becomes a moat for the existing players, and to some extent the existing players are incentivized
it's to all extent, Jesse. It's not to some extent.
To make the regulation
That's literally
more
their
difficult.
Job. The Payments Roundtable invented the money transmitter laws here. For what reason? To control their own monopoly. PayPal, Western Union, MoneyGram.
Yeah.
Completely exactly what happened. You mentioned Japan. I had a great business idea the other day, actually. I want to run by you. So how there are a lot of hedge funds that are offering to buy people's Mt. Gox claims? My friend has a claim. It's like 100 Bitcoin. And the idea is, instead of selling it, or he doesn't mind waiting, some of these distributed finance companies should offer the ability to borrow against your claim. That would be a great idea. That would be...
Yeah, they potentially could do that.
Tokenized
they can even tokenize
Mt. Gox
their
claims. You think that could
somehow.
work? Similar to like how Bitfinex did it?
Sure.
I wonder why no one has tried it before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it just a lot of risk, very low reward.
Sketchy,
I don't know if you remember in
territory.
2016,
Also,
you did an AMA on Reddit. You're one of the only people to ever do this, like especially being the CEO of an exchange. They asked you some great questions, and I want to, but these questions are written for 2016, almost 5 years ago. I want to ask you some of these same questions because they were really great. I mean, reading your answers, I was cracking up. Like, for example, the story how your email got included on the Ashley Madison list. Can you tell that story to our listeners?
Yeah. Well, I don't actually know how it got included on the list. I have like a very generic email that I've had, for like more than 10 years, probably like 15 plus years.
No, of course.
Who knows? It's just, I constantly get signed up for all kinds of things. I'm always getting like, confirmation emails from all sorts of services that I never signed up for. So I must have been something like that. But yeah, I guess I was on the list when they got hacked, and someone sent me the request
Mm-hmm.
like for Bitcoin, to not be exposed or whatever. But I had my autoresponder on at the time,
Oh, that's great. Like 21, or you
which
did it
was
yourself?
asking people to pay me Bitcoin to read their email.
Has anyone paid you?
I did it myself. Yeah, actually, this was before 21. Um, Someone actually did pay me. Yeah, with the system. Yeah, the system is an open source project. It's called Elephant Grass. You can find it on GitHub, and basically, it's just like a Google Apps script that you run on your Gmail account, and it would get a Bitcoin address from blockchain.info and auto reply to the person if they weren't on your whitelist, asking them to send Bitcoin there. And if it found Bitcoin was received, then it would.
That's a great
whitelist
program.
the
And I
person
mean, business models
send
have
them
been written about
through
this.
to-
You
through
wrote
your
in the
inbox.
story how your girlfriend at the time was going to create the boyfriend improvement proposal called segregated penis. And then you said, I'm going to buy some more hashing power. In 2008, in 2016, there were in 2016 they asked you,
911.
where do you see Bitcoin in 2018? Do you remember your answer? Yeah, you did actually. You did, and that was a bull market where you went to like $20,000.
$2,000.
So you're.
Yeah.
This was a great question,
Yeah.
actually.
So in
And I
hindsight,
know
seems
your
like we're doing
answer,
pretty
and
good.
I actually want to know how it played out in your mind. The question was, what would Kraken's position be if there was a sustained hard fork? Now, we know what happened a few years later. In your mind, did that play out the way you would have liked it to have played out with the whole Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, and then you had, BSV or, Craig's Vision or whatever?
Yeah, there's been like a million Bitcoin forks. There's Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diamond, like 20 others. No, I don't like to see the community split up like that. Especially the guys who are on both sides of that. I'm friends with a lot of guys on both sides. So, that's not great. I don't think it's great to divide the community. Of course, I think that, one of the great things about Bitcoin is people are free to fork it and do whatever they want and,
May
prove
the best
their idea
coin win.
in the
I love
market and may the best coin win.
On that note,
Yeah.
may the best coin win. You ever see those old screenshots of CoinMarketCap and in people's speeches or on TV? They always mention how the coins that were around back then don't exist anymore. And there was like Namecoin, Peercoin, and a bunch of them. There was like a list of 10 of them. And what I've been trying to do is try to figure out like what happened to a lot of those coins.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to someone about Peercoin. When I was doing my research, I found out that you actually, Kraken, had a involvement in Namecoin in terms of how a major flaw was found. Do you remember that? This was 2013, and how that played out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, basically, we discovered a flaw in the Namecoin protocol, which was that effectively, like, you could steal anyone else's name and like that you couldn't do it was only enforced in the client. So, like, if you just use a different client or you use the command line, like, you could just steal other people's names. And, that's just kind of like a classic, like, programming mistake where, like, you just, this is done in video games all the time, by the way. Is like the video game developer just like, codes up their user interface for the game, and assumes that people will only ever interact with the back end, like through the official user interface. And then people end up building alternative interfaces to basically like hack the game. But yeah, we reported that to Namecoin and they fixed it. Fortunately, I don't think any
It was a great concept.
Done. But Namecoin was like one of those early projects, which I personally thought had a great concept, had a ton of potential. I think suffered from one just being super early.
ENS has the same problem.
Like name
Ethereum
squatting.
naming service is the same issue.
I don't think they
a bunch of people. Everyone owns Charlie, Charlie
Yeah.
Shrem, Shrem Charlie, C Shrem, everyone. I can't even get anything with the letter C in it because everyone squats on it already.
Yeah, was there like a reverse auction thing with that, or an auction for like
It was
letters of
just,
domains or certain
from my
names, or was it
perspective,
just
it
a
was
free
a
for
free for
all
all. I'm
open
sure the Ethereum
registration?
Foundation kept on to like Kraken, Microsoft and some of the bigger names. But I mean, someone took McAfee, someone took Andreas, like people took people in crypto's names and then they started using it. And I think that's what, that was one of the issue.
Hmm.
Jesse, you guys are have grown. You guys are growing year after
Yeah.
year after year. I see people are talking about Kraken all the time and what you guys are up to. Even today, you announced you announced your partnership with your ability within Kraken for Silvergate Bank to have the ability to do real time transactions, and that's amazing. Did you ever think about when New York pissed you off? And it seems like you took it very personally about what happened with New York. Hashtag get over it. But did you ever think about leaving the U.S. totally?
Hmm.
I know at one point you were
Hmm.
very pushing hard in the EU, and then when you took over that market, I think you came back to the U.S. But did you ever think about just closing off doors in the United States altogether?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, U.S. is at least 80% of
Is
our
that true?
compliance costs, and maybe 20% of the business. So yeah, absolutely. There's a huge imbalance there, and I think you've seen this with some other exchanges as well. Like Poloniex has left the U.S. Binance has broken off the U.S. into its own entity. There are all sorts of things that you can do everywhere else in the world that you can't do in the United States. And there may not even be any license you can get in the United States to do it. Even if you wanted to go like fully legit, there just may not be a path. Like for example, for trading
It
security
doesn't
tokens,
exist
there's
yet,
not
but in other places
any
in the world,
legal path in the
if
United
it didn't
States to do that.
exist, they'd let you
So
sandbox, they let you work,
it
they
doesn't,
let you figure it out. It doesn't work that way here, I guess.
yeah, it doesn't. Unfortunately, the law was written decades ago, and hasn't been updated. It doesn't, it's kind of shocking that 10 years have gone by, and legislators and regulators have had all of this time to react and to get up to speed and to figure out something that works for the changing world, and they still haven't gotten around to it. So at a minimum, I think sandboxing could be done. There can be some sort of de minimis exemption. There are ways around this, but that there just is no legal way to do something which many people demand to do is really a shame. And what it does is forces people to basically go offshore to do this anyway. It's not like it's not happening. It's just going to happen offshore instead, and U.S. people are going to set up foreign entities to do it. And I think the U.S. is the average consumer is increasingly going to be harmed by this lack of
What is the
modernism
civil
in the
servant or the
regulatory world.
middle management in that, that if you work for the government and you're not like a low level person, but you're not a high level person, you're just, mid level, and you work for the government and various regulatory bodies. You probably meet these people all the time. What are their feelings about, not the decision makers, but kind of people that are cogs in the machine? What are their views about this whole space?
It's kind of mixed, and it, I would say that on the U.S., it's much more so the attitude like this is the law and we are here to enforce the law. This is
Not
at the
create law.
regulator, and
Yeah.
the regulator's job is to enforce the law. They're not in the position of making the law, right? So when you talk to the guys in New York, they are, the bit license is the Bible. We are 100% behind it. We don't think there's anything wrong with it. We think that, if you if you want to serve New York clients, you'll bend over and take it. That's their attitude. The other countries, could be entirely different. They could be saying, they might explicitly say, well, yeah, we know what the law says, but we think there's enough gray area here. We're definitely not going to enforce on this for now. We're pushing the legislators to change the law. There's some legislators in the United States that really get it and are working to do something about it. But, it's not, they're large powers to be that, have a vested interest in the status quo. And I think, we've got to overcome that. And I think, one of the ways to do that is just to get enough people into crypto that it becomes like an untenable position to kind of block this from moving forward. And, I think you just need the people to demand what they want from their representatives. Because right now, the people talking to them are the big banks and the lobbyists and, the people who work for.
Jesse, you've been in this space a
they're
very
not
long
really
time.
working for like the
How do you
average
stay
consumer.
motivated? Yeah, no, I don't mean to interrupt you. I know that.
Tons of potential for the
you're
world.
Right. Crypto's amazing. Bitcoin's amazing. I love it, dude. Like, it's our baby. Yeah, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'll admit to you, obviously this is just between us and then everyone else who's listening to the show, that, and you can ask my wife who's sitting in the next room, there are times when I feel burnout. I know a lot of people do it and they never come back. But I'm just Charlie. I run the podcast and I get to go to the beach at the end of the day. You're running a company, a huge global company. What do you do to relax? How do you feel good? How do you maintain good sleep and stay grounded?
Yeah, just personally, try to work out at least 3 times a week. Ideally 4 or 5 times a week. Always try to get 8 hours of sleep, at least. We've been doing that lately, just doing the all meat diet, and that's been really good.
I tell people that we're beef collectors now, because when they open our freezer, they see, oh man, we have Wagyu from Japan. We got, even like Whole Foods has great steaks. We just load up our freezer and we do the same thing. And I think that was one of the, we also don't eat until like 12, like noon every day. And then we stop eating by like 6 or 7. But that's been such an amazing thing for us. And so what's the future of the company? Do you see yourself growing to thousands of team members? Do you see yourself as the one who's going to be acquiring up all the other ones, or do you see yourself being acquired by like a financial service? Do you want to be acquired?
I don't personally have any desire to be acquired at this point. Many of us in the company, including myself, are still in it for the mission. And, I think if we were going to be acquired, we would have to feel like whoever the acquirer was really going to push the crypto agenda hard, like in a way that we maybe couldn't do it on our own. Like you have some like superpower that's like super, super influential in government. And, if they were to have a Bitcoin exchange under them, they would be lobbying for crypto, across the board. That would be like maybe a reason to do it. But, at least right now, I think we feel like we are in a position of influence. I think we have a real chance to make a difference. And the longer we can go, I think without, just kind of folding into the traditional system, the better off things will be going into the future. So, I think we'll probably do more acquiring. It's nice to be in a position to do that. We love just taking on other crypto team members. They're unfortunately like, it's just so early. A lot of businesses that people try that, could be great businesses one day, maybe just aren't there today just because there's not enough adoption. And, to the extent we can, we love to keep people in the industry and, to get people a soft landing, and
It's
we
your
love just
love
to have
for
more
crypto.
hardcore
It's your
crypto
team
people in the
members' love
company.
for
So I
crypto.
think we'll do
It's
more
everything you
acquisitions.
just said. It's the fact that the mission still motivates you. The fact that motivates you and your team and other people. I think that's why, amongst many, many other reasons, that's why a lot of people who have been in the space very early on and still care about the mission and ideology, and there's a lot of us, will purposely use Kraken because they want to support that mission. Do you see that? Do you get customer support emails, or do you meet people in the street who tell you that? Because I would.
Yeah, actually, that does happen. I hear that a lot, and that's one of the big things that keeps
There's
me
not a
going.
lot of you
That, like,
left,
there
Jesse.
is some
There's not
contingent
a
of
lot of
people
you
that,
left.
appreciate our approach.
The big companies are now
And-
run by these seasoned CEOs, and they're great. They're running our. We need infrastructure. We need adults in the room, but it's also nice to have a little bit of love.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. We're trying to hold the ideological mission, still at the heart of what we do, and to sort of be that counterbalance, when maybe other players come out
Exactly.
and, kiss the ring of every regulator out there, and beg for more regulation, because they want to appear to be, you know, compliant or whatever. We think that there's got to be somebody on the other side of that says, wait a minute, like, yeah, maybe that would that would improve the moat that we have, but like, what about, the rest of the industry, or what about the future of this technology, or what about the consumer? What does this mean for the consumer's choice? So, that may not be in our own best financial interest, but, it's not about that for us. It's about, of course, there are many terrible things we could do to increase the value of our stock, but, that would be, I think, at the expense of everyone in the world. So, we're not just here to enrich our shareholders. We are here to push crypto forward, and to enrich all crypto holders and people of the world. So, I think someone's got to be there to have the alternative view, which is not just recreating the ancient financial system 2.0.
That should be the name of
basically
a book,
just
the
another
Ancient
group
Banking
of four
System
guys who are making all
2.0.
the rules.
I know Brett King, he writes these books every year called like Breaking Banks. Great guy, runs a podcast. And he's up to like number 7 now. It's like, yeah, I just released Breaking Banks number 7. It's like, how many times are you going to be writing these books about, how the future of the banking system goes? Jesse, thank you so much. Keeping that vision alive. You're the CEO of Kraken. I don't really need to do much of an intro because everyone knows you and everyone knows Kraken already. I can't wait to release this show. Doing it live with you in California was super fun, and I can't wait to see you again.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Likewise, you've been such an awesome part of the space and the development of crypto, and it's really great that you've got this podcast now where you are bringing out these really cool stories that people have never heard of the old days. It's kind of really cool that we didn't really have something like this for the internet.
In real time,
we have sort of
like the stories don't end. It
being
keeps
documented.
It keeps going,
I think is really awesome.
And I'm so surprised sometimes when people tell me I didn't know about this or I didn't know about that. There are people who don't, Jesse. There are people who don't even know about like Mt. Gox. There are people that don't even. I mean, forget like some of the really early stuff. Definitely not. But so I feel like my job is to do this and have fun and doing it in an entertaining way. And allow people to come and tell their stories. It's really a lot of fun and really great, and everyone loves it. So again, thanks for doing it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. New episodes of Untold Stories are released every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. EST on untoldstories.com, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Untold Stories is produced by Jason Yanowitz, Michael Ippolito, Reed Hannaford, and Riley Silbert of Blockworks Group. Our account executives are Gina DeFelice and Julie Muroff. Our content is written by Kathy Zolo, Ronnie Tishner, and Scott Offord. Special thanks to Wayne Dallaire from Jump Dog Audio Productions. And of course, I'm your host, Charlie Shrem. You can follow me on Twitter at Charlie Shrem to continue the conversation. Send me some messages, feedback, or anything you want to say. And remember, please give some love to my sponsors, and I'll see you next week. Remember, strength in numbers, and information is power.